Hello, beautiful beings of love and light. Welcome to our Embodied Divinity. This is a YouTube series and podcast where we talk to beings on their spiritual journey about how they came into their unique superpowers and are now sharing it with the world. I do this to normalize the connection we all have to the divine that is speaking to the world through our unique human experience, through our bodies. We are all embodied. Our embodied divinity was born in Cambodia during COVID. I had the intention to help us to all normalize how we all have spiritual gifts and to discover, by hearing others talk about them, how we choose for ourselves to realize them and then actualize them in our lives. Sometimes this journey feels really miraculous, and sometimes this journey feels really dark and really fucked up. Knowing that, I started this series to hopefully make the journey of spiritual awakening just a bit less confusing and to help us all feel more connected to each other, and for each of our stories to help one another remember who we are. I speak to amazing beings to give you ideas or tools that they have used so that you can try them on and see what works for you. It's also a way for me to share some of the most incredible beings I have met in my journey. Please know that you are just like them. You are here to share your unique magic with the world. And so we're just giving it a voice so it can be shared. Today, I am with the incredible Beverly Sartain, founder and CEO of the Holistic Coach Training Institute, which certifies people around the globe to be heart-centered, spiritually guided, professional accredited coaches. Bev has gone through her own journey of suffering through substance abuse, mental health, and trauma issues, to writing books and support tools and card decks and just being prolific in the world through different organizations. She is one of my greatest inspirations, one of my dearest friends, and she now runs her own highly successful coaching business and brand with heart and meaning that is meant to inspire you to do the same. Bev, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for that beautiful opening. You were just so settled in and grounded, and I just hear so much loving essence coming through you. So thank you for that.
Thank you for inspiring it. Is there anything that you would like to clear or share or connect on before we get into the question portion?
I'm just feeling really peaceful today, and I've been feeling really peaceful for a while now, which is really special. And just the word co-creation has been really present today. I'm intending to just be co-creative with you in this space, and whatever's meant to come through for me, for you, for all of us, that's what I'm holding through our connection today.
Well, thank you very much for that. Just as an intro, can you speak to whatever you'd like to share about our connection, how we met?
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying like close friend, because that's certainly how I feel about you. I think we have an interesting connection always through my eyes, because you're somebody that's in my world now that knew me before I started my recovery and healing journey. And so that always feels really meaningful for me to have you part of my circle, and for you to be somebody that knew me before really I went through my spiritual awakening and made a lot of shifts in my life. And it just feels really special that we've been journeying together for a long time. And then you've done some coach training with us, and it's just been this beautiful evolution that we've been going through, and really, really happy about it.
Yeah, thank you. Me too. You know, when we knew each other, when we first met, I had also not gone through my spiritual awakening journey. So very, the same, you knew me before I knew me,
Right.
really. You know, and
Yeah.
those personalities and conditions and everything just played out. And I always just valued you so much. You were the person who gave me the book, The Seeker's Guide.
Mhm.
And I just think that that connection of spirit was there from the very beginning, you know,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
We were both figuring things out for sure.
Yeah.
And so it's just nice that we've stayed on similar paths and been able to do this work alongside one another.
Yeah. Being in service. You're an incredible inspiration to that. So thank you for existing. Yeah. So when did you first start to realize that there's more beyond just this human reality?
Yeah, it feels like it took a while. It's interesting. So, part of
Yeah.
my story is that my parents are both immigrants from another country. And so that's a big part of my story, is that we were very isolated um, in this country. My parents, when they moved from Germany to the United States, they did not come to the United States and get connected in any type of religious training. So there wasn't any connection to religion. There wasn't any connection really to spirituality. Those things really weren't talked about and discussed in the household. It was more like, be smart, do good at school, do good at sports, be, part of all the groups and be real active. That was really the focus of, of my upbringing. And so, I did have some friends though that were part of churches. And so I did like go with my one friend to mass sometimes. And I did go with my one friend to, a church with her that was Presbyterian. There was kind of like a dabbling, but it was just because other people were doing it or their families were doing it. So it didn't really have like a strong connection to anything. And I would say that it really started for me when I went away to college. And I would go to the Barnes and Noble and I would sit in the New Age section and I would like read about astrology and I would, just pull like books down, anything that could start to show me more about who I was. I think that was also when like the trauma was starting to hit after having gone away from where the trauma was really happening. I now can look back and see that probably my system, like my mind, my body, was trying to start to release and understand and kind of process the trauma that I had been living in for a really long time. And so I got really into dance music. And I also got really into drug use at this time, which was kind of a double-edged sword. I was really into ecstasy and hallucinogens. And interestingly enough, like some of those things are now becoming really popular more in clinical settings. And so that is part of my story, as I was into those types of drugs. And I do think there was a part of those things that did help me connect and did help me have compassion and did bring on more empathy that I wasn't really able to have for myself through my human lens. And then the other thing that happened in college was being connected to the Temple of the Universe, which was Mickey Singer. Everybody knows him as Michael Singer. He wrote the book, The Untethered Soul. But he has a temple in Gainesville, Florida. I went to the University of Florida. And so my friend started inviting me to go see him speak. And so even though I was very heavily into my behaviors at that time, my drinking and my drug use, I was still going and listening to talks by Michael Singer. And that did something for me too. So there was like the divine coming in there. I know now, even though I was having such a hard time in my human experience, those things were happening simultaneously for me.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that was particularly resonant from what you were hearing from Mickey talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has like, and I talk a lot about the 4 levels, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level. And I have really learned this about myself, is I'm very strong on the mental, spiritual level. So I really have a very strong connection with the mental level, helping me access the spiritual level. And I have gravitated towards spiritual teachers that have that connection too, or help speak to that connection. And I definitely see Michael Singer as one of those people. He's very strong on the mental level. And so that was like a good access point for me to receive new paradigms and principles and perspectives. I needed to have those things come to me on the mental level so that I could make meaning, make understanding of like a new way of being or a new way of operating. So yeah, I just can remember, and if you listen to any of his podcasts that he has, because he does still to this day, he does like talks every single week. I think he does one on Sunday, on Thursday, and he records those. And then now he puts those on his podcast that he has. Mm-hmm. But you can hear like, it's very mental in a sense. Like there's just a lot of learnings on that mental ego level that then helps us connect more on that spiritual level. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then what was there like a turning point? Because I mean, you've written this beautiful book and you have all of these tools that you offer us as coaches and training. And I'm just curious if there was a time when, you speak a lot to the buildup of all of, the behaviors that you were expressing and trying to figure things out. But now look at you. I mean, you're you're prolific in the way that the consistency with which you share and you support everyone else who's seeking and resonates with you. How did that shift from like the person abusing drugs in college to even when we met to then, beyond? Yeah.
Well, it got worse. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. And I'd love for people to hear this part of the story, is like there was a lot of spiritual coming in, but I was still so in my behaviors, I couldn't really receive it all. And so that was the big turning point. And maybe for somebody listening here too, it's that the behaviors had to shift. And it took me a lot more years, I'd say, from what I was just sharing with you. I mean, I left college at then 21, and then we met in my early 20s. And then I didn't really start my journey fully in terms of letting go of my behaviors until I was 26. So there was a lot of consequences. There was a DUI. There was, a couple of overdoses that led me to be in the hospital. My dad died of his alcoholism. He had cirrhosis of the liver, and that was a big part of the turning point. It still took me 2 years after his death to really let go of the substances. And it wasn't just substances, it was relationships that I was using to feel good about myself. It was workaholism. There was so many things behavior-wise that I was utilizing to try to feel okay about myself. And it wasn't until I started to have suicidal ideations. And then it was like, okay, I need to get help for this. And part of the reason why getting help was so hard for me is that I have always been a helping professional. And so there was this really big misunderstanding of like, I can't ask for help. I'm the one that helps other people. Yet I was struggling so bad. And it wasn't until I let go of that misunderstanding and said, okay, I need to get help or I'm not going to be here anymore. And then that's when the journey started. I can remember after going and seeing that therapist the first time, which a friend helped schedule that appointment. I will always remember that person for helping me schedule the appointment and driving me to the appointment and making sure I got to the appointment and did it. Feeling just so relieved after that initial appointment. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get help. And that was really such a big deal for me. And then the turning point came from there. And I still fought it for a while. I resisted it. I would go to therapy and then I'd go to like the sushi place right by the therapist office and then drink and eat some sushi after my therapy appointment. And I struggled with that for like 3 or 4 months. And then I can remember the therapist said, Beverly, if you want to make the mental and emotional changes that you said that you want to make, you're going to need to stop drinking for at least a year and take your medication for my anxiety disorders. And I didn't want to do that again. And so I resisted that for about 3 or 4 months. And then I had another consequence that happened. I started to drink and drive again. And then I was like, okay, I have to do something because something bad is going to happen now. And then I just went in there and I said, okay, I'll do it. I will take my medication and I will not drink for the next year. And then he said, we'll reconvene and we'll see after that year what you decide you want to do. And of course, never looked back from that time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's been 18 years now. I just celebrated 18 years.
You had to get sober for a year before they would work with you.
No, we just, that was the only way I would do it, was the commitment of like, just do this for a year and then you can go back to drinking if you want. Wow. But I didn't, once we got to that year, I mean, I just felt so good and things were so much better. There was no way I was gonna jeopardize all the work that had been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that and for your honesty, because so many of us utilize substances as a way to, I mean, a lot of it's just normalized. Yeah. Right? Like go to therapy and then I'm going to go get sushi and drink. I mean, what else? That's what I always do.
Yep, exactly.
And then it escalates and yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a big part of this like idea of spiritual embodiment. To me, it's like continuing to look at what are the behaviors, what is the thinking, what is the feeling that could potentially be getting in the way of my full actualization, of me living my full potential. And that I think is an important piece for people to look at. I
love that question. Yeah. I'm writing it down right now. Because that's so impactful. I mean, I personally, still casually drink. And, I know many people have been on this journey of, what is addiction and what is not, and how do I live my life? But really that clincher is what's getting in the way of me living my fullest potential. Yeah. Because it's not possible without certain things, right? The absence of things, so that you can have space for other potentialities. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is like people often say like, how was all this created? How did you create all these things? Right. And the truth is that they've come through me because I've cleared the way for them to come through. And so, that's why I think that it's just so important
to keep working with what's there in the consciousness. Like when I turned 26 and got sober, 6 months after that, that's when I studied spiritual psychology. And spiritual psychology is really the practice and the study of conscious awakening. And so one of the things that we say in spiritual psychology is just always to look at what is in the consciousness, because any misunderstandings in the consciousness can become barriers to your potential, or your actualization, or your spiritual embodiment, or whatever these words are that are important to you.
Right.
So it's really a practice. That's part of the practice, is not just using spiritual tools. It's actually looking at, like, where am I now in my life? You know, what vision do I have for my soul journey? And having some clarity about that. Like, what are my soul lessons? What did I come here to do? And then what's in my consciousness, or what's going on inside of me or outside of me with behaviors that might be getting in the way of that full actualization. And that will give you a lot of direction for your own spiritual journey.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. So much just came through with just you sharing that. I love that you studied spiritual psychology. You're the person that introduced it as a concept to me. I recently discovered somatic psychology, which is so much, similar, and another aspect of the holistic spectrum.
Yeah.
And you have a master's in it. Yes? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've created this coach training institute. I just want to know about, like, the journey from, so first there's this, like, actually accepting, okay, I'm going to give myself a chance and I'm going to commit to this. And then can you fill in the space
Yeah,
between?
Yeah, you're right. It was first was like, I talk a lot about coping, healing, thriving. So first, I was so broken down on the human level, I had to get some coping. And that's really, for me, what therapy was, what medication for my anxiety disorders was all about. I needed to get back to some sort of baseline, because I wasn't operating at that when I seeked help. And then once I started to get my footing there, and I started to feel better, and I started to just feel like I could now go on the healing journey, which was the next step for me, that's when that spiritual psychology came in. And that's what started to give me, like, the paradigms and principles, those mental kind of paradigms and principles, one of which was, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I can remember when Dr. John and Mary Holnick said that in one of our classes, and it just, like, hit me at the core. And I was like, yes, that's it. Like, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I've just been thinking I'm a human being having a human experience. And that's why, I have so much self-loathing and self-hatred and unworthiness, and just all this shit was really connected to this, the fact that I didn't know that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And as soon as I received that, and, like, really received it, speaking to your embodiment language, I embodied that. And then it was living from, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And so it gave me more compassion towards my humanness. It gave me more forgiveness towards my humanness, more acceptance. I had to learn those skills and learn how to actually do those things for myself. That's why I connect very much like you do with self-love. Like, I had to, like, go through this process of, like, learning how to be acceptable to myself as a human being, but really through the lens of a spiritual being having a human experience. So that was definitely one of the principles that was life-changing for me personally, and really helped me create a remembering of the truth of who I am beyond just my humanness. And as soon as I got that, I was able to be more loving and forgiving and accepting and compassionate towards all the things I had done, towards things that had been done to me. And I just started to resolve some of those things. That's why for me, like paradigms and principles, they really do something for me mentally and spiritually, so that I can have a mental understanding, but then have like a spiritual surrender for letting go of the information. Yeah. So then that happened. And then I became a substance abuse counselor and started, I had been working at nonprofits for about 10 years. So worked in domestic violence, mental health co-occurring facilities. And so that was a part of that journey too, as I was working in nonprofits, I was studying spiritual psychology, and then I ended up becoming a substance abuse counselor. Yeah.
What does a spiritual being mean to you?
To me, it feels like my soul came here to have a journey and have some lessons. And so it feels another language that we use in spiritual psychology is loving essence, which I've already said once here before. So it was like seeing myself as a loving essence and seeing the loving essence in other people, which is one of the reasons I really like coaching a lot, because I feel like in coaching, I can bring my loving essence and I can see the loving essence of the other person. Or another way that I say it is like, I can bring my own magnificence and I can see the magnificence of the coachee as well. So for me, coaching is very spiritual in that way, is that it's a way of bringing like these two souls together, these two loving essences together, and then like co-creating something that the coachee wants to work on and resolve, maybe inside of themselves or something they want to create into the world. And that for me, that combination feels really, really special to do. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. All of that. And what does feel, you say like when I feel, or when I really embody that, what does that mean to you? Like, what does the embodiment of that principle feel like or look like? Or
it moves beyond just a concept, because I can like these concepts or these paradigms, but then for me, and I'm really big on application. It's how do I apply this concept in my life every day? So how do I apply I'm a spiritual being having a human experience? Or how do I apply like I'm a loving essence and somebody else has a loving essence too? That to me is the spiritual embodiment or the spiritual practice. It's not just these cool concepts that maybe do something for us mentally or emotionally. It's like, how do I live this concept now? And that process of trying to live it and embody it and be it, that's where I think a whole nother level of transformation happens for people. So that's what I mean by it. It's like, for me now, I have the intention to live more from my spiritual being. Do I negate my humanness? No. Do I try to resist it? No. I know I'm going to have humanness because I'm here in this human body, and that's part of this experience that we're all experiencing. But can I be intentional or intend to live more from my spiritual being? Yes, I do think that I can. Do I tend to live more from my spiritual being? Yes. Do I have days where maybe I'm more in my humanness? Sure. Sure. But the intention is there to live more from the spiritual being. And that, I think, is when I can just access more of like spiritual qualities or things that I value, when I have that intention there.
Yeah. And you speak a lot about, the mental and the paradigms and principles really being a big support for you, like what you really rely on.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what are the if any, spiritual practices that you participate in for yourself to like get you into that space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think these days, like I used to be very rigid or structured. I mean, I'm a very structured person anyway, that, my Virgo
Yeah.
sun is for sure structured.
Yes.
But what's fun now is because I've been doing these practices for so long is just to be intuitive. That feels really fun for me.
Mm.
So it's like, I already know I'm going to do stuff every day. I'm going to take care of myself. Like that's part of the journey I've been on. Obviously, if you've been doing this stuff for 18 years, where you start with it is not where you're at when you've been doing it for decades. What I like to do now is, well, number one, I facilitate and hold a lot of space for other people. So that's a fun process to be a part of. But I like to be more intuitive for myself, of just like, what do I need? And just checking in with myself and listening to myself and listening to my own internal guidance. And I've developed like such a relationship with that part of myself that I love touching base and checking in and seeing just what do I need right now. I did that before I hopped on with you, and I got the message like, do a 10-minute meditation about connecting with your higher self. And so I just sat here looking outside on our garden, and I did that meditation and took care of myself in that way so that I could be fully present with you here and with myself and with everybody that's listening. So I love being intuitive. I've got like a handful of books that I really enjoy. That's kind of that mental aspect. Again, there's certain spiritual teachers I really like to read their writings because their particular writings for me connect me to I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
Mm.
So I have like my go-tos with that, like Ernest Holmes and Michael Beckwith, Dr. Rana Mary Holnick, Eckhart Tolle. There's a couple of people that I tend to go to their books, and there's just passages that I read. And as soon as I read those things, I start to go into this kind of co-creative, kind of channeling experience where I can receive downloads, I can receive messages. So I just have a very strong connection there on that mental, spiritual level. So I love certain writing. And then, I like to write too. I like to read people's writings, and then I like to write too. So writing is another way that I receive downloads, receive like just messages, ideas of again, spiritual being having a human experience, and how can I, through the work that I do, help people connect more to who they are, and to, the different levels. So that's another way that I really get connected. I have a very strong partnership with Richard that I'm super proud of and love. And so there's a very strong spiritual connection there. So there's like a lot of evolution that happens through that particular. And then, I've been getting more into gardening, which has really been interesting. And that's really happened through Richard. And that's been really lovely, to grow vegetables and herbs and flowers and to tend to the garden. There's just a lot of metaphors, I think, to life and to spirituality that have been coming through the garden. And so that's what I mean by being intuitive. It's like, I wouldn't have said the garden 3 years ago, but I'm saying garden now. So it's like, I think it's important to let yourself evolve with your spiritual embodiment and the tools that you use. There might be tools for a season of your life. There might be tools that you do for the rest of your life. But I think it's fun to like find the ones that really resonate. Self-forgiveness is another one for me that's really strong. And that one always stays with me. But then there's these other things like gardening and kayaking that are starting to come in now. And I find a lot of fun and joy in trying new things too.
Nice. Thank you so much. They're so, they're not like your typical ways that people would respond to that. I'm from the yoga community.
Yeah.
Most people are just like, I'm a hardline meditator. Like it has to be meditation, So it's really beautiful to hear you know, just the simplicity of being intuitive, like that's a practice because it really is, right? To actually ask yourself, like, what do I need right now? It's
Mhm.
so important. And to then wait, you know, you train us all in, you know, the pause, you know, like waiting for the answer,
Mhm.
actually listening and then actively listening to yourself.
Imagine
Um,
that. Yeah. It really is about being present to yourself. It's really about being present to what are the tools now, and letting
yeah.
that evolve and change and shift and maybe stay the same. And so I know, like, I think what's most important now is that, like, I have the discipline to know I'm going to take care of myself. Now it's just playing around with that of, like, how do I want to take care of myself today,
Mm.
and letting there be flexibility and freedom in that instead of some rigidity, which I think I used to have around it.
Yeah, the self-forgiveness part of it,
Mhm.
that it can look different ways all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm really envious of your organization skills and the structure that you have. Like just hearing that that sounds like it's, you know, I already have that. So then I can just be free
Yeah.
with the other stuff. I'm like, oh, how do I wait? Wait, go back. How do we get it? It's like, I'm just a Virgo. Right. Shit. Okay.
Just
Can't have that.
But you're a Taurus. You've got the earth sign too, and the practical. You can have the practicality. I mean, that's a little bit more Virgo, but
Yeah, it's using, I've learned that it's, I need to transmute my stubbornness into being stubbornness about structure,
Mm,
you know, instead of stubborn about ego stuff, get stubborn about, no, this is what you're doing right now.
that's great. That's a good insight.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. So, what were you kind of seeing and hearing and sensing or knowing
Mhm.
when you made these like big shifts from, you know, using all of your habits and I forget what you were referring to them as, um, into then, okay, I'm going to commit to myself. And, you know, there's still so many more transitions that you've been through. I mean, 18 years, you know, and
Mhm.
now this, this massive like enterprise, you know, like this holistic enterprise that you've
Mhm.
created. What were you feeling and experiencing that maybe you questioned or were comparing to what it seemed other people were going through, or did you maybe have none of that? Um, that that you had to kind of break through to get to where you are.
Mhm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's interesting. Like, I haven't had a lot of compare and despair,
Mm,
but this is
awesome.
because of I'm a spiritual being having a human experience.
Yeah.
So from the spiritual being, like, there's nothing to compare. This
Yeah.
is just my expression of all of this. And so again, like, once I got really clear about what that meant to me, and like that my journey here is to, like, actualize my spiritual being as much as I can, knowing, like, I had a lot of hardships that I went through when I was younger. And I know all of us in life have some sort of hardships that we have to go through and overcome. I do encourage people to find some sort of life philosophy that they can hold
Hmm.
on to. Mine was, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and you can see it's done a lot for me. That's not going to be everybody's paradigm that really does something for them. But I do encourage people to find a life philosophy that does, that's a life philosophy that I really hold on to and embody. And because of that, I didn't go into a lot of comparing. Also, I did a lot of healing, which, I think fills in the gap there, is that there was a lot that had to be healed There were a lot of misunderstandings that had to be healed and resolved in some sort of way. And so I really did that with self-forgiveness. Like there's a particular technique in spiritual psychology that we learn. And it's really about, I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that, and it's really like going to the root. I always say, I love this like spiritual psychology, self-forgiveness technique, because it's like pulling the weed out, or going like really getting the roots out. I think oftentimes when people do spiritual practice, they're maybe just on the surface level, and they're not really getting the roots of that particular weed out. And so that's why then that misunderstanding keeps showing up for them, even, years later. Then it's just like, it's fine if it does. It's just know that you got to go to that misunderstanding. You're not going to just be able to sweep it under the rug. You need to resolve it. And that's the hard part, is for many years before I made my shift, I was really just trying to sweep all the trauma, all the mental health, all the behaviors under the rug. And then it surfaces, it comes up because it really wants to be healed and loved and resolved. And so that is hard work. That is hard work. That is heavy lifting. That can take a long time. For anybody that's listening. But for me, like on a soul level, I had a readiness to do that work. I talk about that in my book, that I was ripe and ready to do that work. And I did do that work because I had that suicidal ideation. I was at a big turning point in my life where it was either choose to die or choose to live. And because I had gotten to that place, that the choose to live was then like, okay, if I'm going to choose to live, I have to find a different way to live. And that's when that life philosophy from spiritual psychology came in for me. I was real ripe and ready to hear some of those things and then to take those on and really work those things in my life. For somebody else listening, there might be a different life philosophy that you really want to embrace. But I think that's the important piece, is really embracing it and embodying it, and not just superficially like holding it as something that's of interest to you or that you kind of dabble in. Or I really went all in on these things that I'm sharing about. And so I think that's why they really did something for me.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You speak to time, like that filled in the gaps, and it's a massive gap, right? And personally, I've been on this journey for the past 5 years only, really. And when I look at what has been involved in that has been so many, like giving everything up, like multiple times, literally doing nothing but my healing work. Literally, not even working, and not everyone can do that. If you believe that you can't. But how important is the amount of time that you spend on your own healing to you? And what does it actually look like for you to embody those things? Like, what do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I always loved, like Ron would say, and him and his wife created spiritual psychology. He would say, like, healing can happen it can take as long as you want it to be, or as short as you want it to be. And I always, that paradigm kind of would blow me away, because I would be like, no, this has to take forever. Like I couldn't see any other way than like, this is going to take forever, but when he would say like, it can be as short as you want it to be, then it would be like, whoa. And there's some truth to that, in terms of, like, I had a strong connection to victim consciousness, like with my North Node being also in Virgo and my South Node being in Pisces. My Achilles heel is victim consciousness. And so I spent a lot of time in victim consciousness. And in spiritual psychology, we talk about victim consciousness versus creator consciousness. And so, you know, I had to really navigate a lot of thinking and feeling around wanting to be a victim for a long time, because in that place, then I didn't have to take responsibility for actually like who I was being now and what I had created now in my life. But as soon as I did start to take responsibility and look at my part that I played in the now, like that's when the healing started to happen faster. And also when I started to learn how to forgive myself, that was another tool that made the healing much quicker. So even though like it's been 18 years of recovery now, I actually, in those few years that I was doing spiritual psychology, healed a lot. There was a lot of healing that happened. And again, it's because there were certain principles and paradigms that just really, like, as soon as I heard them, like something clicked for me. And that's why, like, whether it's, you know, yoga principles that you all learn, or whether it's, you know, the Tao Te Ching and Taoism, or whether there's something else that like those principles, or when you hear those things, it just does something for you. I encourage everybody to find that life philosophy that really can support them on the mental level, but also the spiritual level. Because I think that for me, that started to help the healing go faster.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I'm noticing also that I'm not recognizing is that your brain's a part of your body,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you keep referring to like this, you know, it's a concept. It's like take what principle really gets you like in the core of you. Like that,
Yes.
like when you're describing this, I know this feeling very well, because when I was reading the spiritual texts of the yoga tradition,
Yes.
I was like, what, like, how did you know? This is what I've been like feeling my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't have like a foundation. Like it wasn't in the Bible. That's what I was brought up
Mm-hmm.
on. So these concepts weren't there. So I didn't think they existed. And so I'm really grateful that you're bringing this up. Like find a philosophy that works for
Yeah.
you. Find the thing that really gets you, because it's so validating, right? Like, yes, that's what I've always felt. That's what I've always thought. And it's like in written form. It's like, here's the book on it. This
Yeah.
can be like the instruction manual for your life. Yeah.
Yes. And then you can live it. That's, I feel like the next best
Yeah.
thing that we can do is be the demonstration of these things. Like that's always what I hope you and everybody in our community sees. Like I'm just living the things, the lessons, the learnings, the philosophy, like,
Yeah.
and I know when somebody's living the things that they're talking about, because their life gets better.
Yeah.
That's what happens, you know? So it's like, I don't care what the philosophy is, like, show me the philosophy and show me your life. Because that's when I know somebody's embodying it. That's when I know somebody is demonstrating it. And there's nothing more powerful. We can't just tell people, like, this should be your philosophy. We can't, because they have to go on their own spiritual journey to figure out what the philosophy is that does that thing to the core, like you were just saying, that makes you go like, this is it, like this is what I've always been feeling or thinking or knowing inside of myself. Like find those things and then apply it, live it, be it, demonstrate it. Your life will become better because of it. And then that's the ripple that then impacts other people and supports them in finding the philosophies that work for them.
Mm. Yes.
Yes. Amen.
So much. Yes. Hallelujah. Ah. So, yeah, I mean, I firmly believe that everyone has these gifts that we have are going to arise when we are on that journey, when we can start to dissolve the pain of the trauma that we've experienced and done to ourselves, and start to forgive that. What superpowers do you feel you've owned and have been revealed through this process?
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were talking, like what was coming through is like setting down the behaviors, then setting down victim consciousness was another part of my journey. Like I couldn't like become the channel or receive the downloads, or like even when we talk about what's my purpose in life, it's going to be hard to receive what your purpose in life is if you haven't like cleared the way for that.
Yeah.
So really like setting the behaviors down that are getting in the way, and then letting go of victim consciousness or resolving the misunderstandings in your mind. Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm a bad person, or whatever those stories are. Like, you cannot keep perpetuating those narratives in your consciousness and think that you're going to create something really great out here. So you have to kind of clear that noise or those beliefs, and just resolve those. And it doesn't even, it's like, well, then what do I put in there? You don't even have to know that yet. You just need to know, like, I need to let go of some of these things that are getting in my way, and trust that there's going to be new information, that the life philosophy that comes in, or that you go looking for that life philosophy that resonates with you, and that will get the journey going. As far as like the gifts that have come through, well, real interestingly enough, because of the environment that I grew up in, which was a very unsafe environment, and there was just a lot of anxiety, and there's no coincidence that I have had a lot of anxiety diagnoses. So the energy of the environment that I lived in was very unsafe, very unstable, very unnerving, so I think that was just in my nervous system. And what I did get good at there was listening and observing and being very introspective. So I think those were some good skills and qualities that came out of that environment that then I started to nurture with studying psychology and with like going into coaching. I think something I've learned about myself through my business even is how like much initiative I have. I've had like employers tell me that. I've also had employers tell me I have a lot of emotional intelligence. I want to be in harmony with people. I really do. I want to be in harmony with myself, and I want to be in harmony with other people. I can still stand up for myself if I need to, but I think my nature is to want to create harmonious environments and exchanges with people. But that initiative has been really neat to see. I think that initiative comes from like the potential inside of me wanting to actualize. I think that's what that initiative actually is. I've had people tell me like, you're ambitious, and I don't resonate with that word. I don't feel ambitious. I really don't. I think that I have a lot of potential that wants to be actualized, and that's something that comes out and through me. And then I really want for people to get to know the truth of who they are. And so I think all of the spaces I've created, I think that's what the coaching is. I want people to see their magnificence, or I want to just be a part of that process of them figuring out what their magnificence might be. And so I feel like that's been part of the superpower. And then like the mental level again, like I'm very strong on like creating programs and curriculum, and my mind is very active that way. Like I can hear certain things and then like break it down into a process and want to share that with people. That's been really fun. That one can be a bit of a double-edged sword too, because I can get swept away into creating mode when maybe that's not really where my time needs to be spent. So I feel like I've gotten better with that one the last 5 years.
Yeah. I love how humble you are in stating all of these things.
Really? Because that didn't feel humble at all.
Well, that's hilarious. Because that was such a big brag in such like you brought up harmonious in such a harmonious way. You have a Libra moon or rising?
I don't. I have a Scorpio. I have a Gemini rising and a Scorpio moon. Yeah.
Wow. We're about to be full.
Yep.
In Scorpio.
Right.
You on it.
I know, that'd be real emotional over here.
Shining. Yep. Shining bright. Let's see it all. Wow. What do you have in Libra? Anything?
Libra's my fifth house. So that's like, my house of creativity. We're in Libra right now. I checked before we came on to see, because I've had a really great day today. I had a coach supervision training that I'm participating in, and I had just a really great connection with somebody in the group today. And so, yeah, that Libra kind of, relationships and it's in my fifth house.
Beautiful. Oh, I love all of these truths. Okay. To wrap up, I'm like, what's the best thing I could ask you now?
Was that already an hour? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know, right? I
That's
could talk to you
incredible.
forever. It's so amazing. I'm just like, oh, writing all the notes. It's incredible. Say that. Wait, I gotta go back. Oh, yeah, you shared all these gifts. I think that's really important, to be able to, even though you don't think it was humble, but to humbly state the things that are your superpowers that are unique to you, and have them be things that are not things that you would generally think of as a superpower. Like you said, listening and observing and being introspective. And that's so crucial for what you do. I mean, what does a coach need to do other than listen and observe and be present, right? Like that's, if there's anything for me, that would be the heart of it. Yeah, just your gifts do not have to be this like, oh, I can, corral hundreds of people, or I can like fly or something. You mean it's something as simple as I'm a good listener.
Yeah.
And it's so impactful. It's so essential and necessary in the world. People really don't actually listen to one another.
Yes.
So just like that.
Richard and I were just talking about that. He was like, people are actually not very good at listening. He notices that a lot when we're with people. And I'm like, I know, sweetie, because we're both coaches. And so he's like, we're always listening to people, and people are not very good at listening to us.
Yes.
I'm like, I know.
That's why we need to all hang out as coaches,
right,
to be heard, to feel listened to. I literally request that from my friends. I'm like, I just need to be heard right now. I need you to just hear me. I just need to talk for a while, please hear me. And the other coaches are like, oh yeah, ready.
Got you. Yep.
Got you. Okay, well, just to wrap up, I am so, like, I cannot even express how grateful I am to have you, my trainer, my coach trainer. You created holistic coaching. Like, for that to even be a thing in this world, it had to come from you. It had to be channeled through you. And I'm so grateful that you actually did the work to clear all of the things that you needed to, so that you could be that beacon of light. Oh my God, I can't. It means so much to me that you have chosen this, and that there's so much support that you give everyone daily. Like, your consistency, it's an aspiration of mine, and I just value it so much. I can't I can't even think of words, and I'm a really word person, but I have like, yeah, it just makes me want to cry.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And just like to tie it back in with, I think the reason that I've been able to be so consistent and so reliable, and it's really, again, because it's coming from my spiritual being. I think if I was trying to do all of this from my humanness, Beth, it would be real wonky. So it's like, that's what you
Yeah.
see is it's coming more from my spiritual being. And so it's not hard. It's not hard because it's coming from that. So I really appreciate your reflection back to me because it feels very affirming for all the work that's been done. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's immense. You're prolific. And is there any way that anything else that you'd like to impart on people, and how can people get in touch with you and know more about all of your incredible offerings and magnificence in the world? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, the bottom line or the theme that came through here today, which wasn't even intended, so this was the co-creation, was this idea of a life philosophy.
Yeah.
And finding the life philosophy that you really resonate with, and that not just like, oh, sounds cool and I really like this idea, but no, I want to live this. I want to demonstrate this. I want to be this because this is what's going to create a change for me and then potentially help other people as well. So that is really what I just want to acknowledge, that came through for all of us. And as far as reaching out, Holistic Coach Training Institute is our business. If you are ever considering learning how to coach, we would love for you to consider us. We're ICF accredited, and we just really attract a lot of good-hearted people that are meaning to do good work into the world. And so if that's ever of interest to you, please know you can reach out. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I give raving reviews to Beverly and Richard, and the cohorts that come together that you facilitate and that you call in are just like the most incredible humans, the most incredible spirit channels through every session. It's nothing short of miraculous. And I'm so grateful that you've made that possible for me and for so many people.
Yeah, it's really that combination of personal development and professional development. And that's what I love about it. That's what I love about coaching, is that I know a lot of us are growing spiritually just by learning how to coach. And I love that can come together, that people can learn skills, but that they can also really develop who they are through the process, I think is what makes it so magical for people.
Yeah. And the structure of it. It's like, here's how you do this for you and for everyone else. Anyone that ever talks to me as a coach, like, oh, how do I do this? It's like, you just need to take the right training. You would not have this question if you took Bevel's training. If you were certified for Holistic Coach Training Institute, you would not have that question. You would have a document that tells you. That's what.
Oh my goodness, I love
Done. This
you.
has been done. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your life, Beverly.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
Yeah. Likewise. How should we close this?
Well, aware, present, relaxed is coming in. So I might just say this 5 times if that's okay. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to put my hand on my heart and just invite everybody into aware, present, and relaxed. Just holding this mantra in your mind, in your heart, in your body. Aware, present, relaxed. Just being in gratitude, thankfulness that we got to be together today, that we got to hear powerful messages. Just knowing that something that was said today was meant for you. And may it be a spiritual breadcrumb for you to continue on your personal journey. And just one more time, aware, present, and relaxed. May you take this with you today and use it in some special. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bev. It's beautiful
Mhm.
as always.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so reach out, everyone, if you would like to connect with Beverly. So much love.
Thank you.
Thank you.